When I was in graduate school, I had to read a piece by Friedrich Nietzsche, The Antichrist. This is the German edition, Der Antichrist. And now, if you know anything about Nietzsche, he is all about power. He thinks that power is what rules the world. He thinks that power is what's going to make you well off. The good life is going to follow those who have power. And this book, The Antichrist, is a criticism of Jesus, because Jesus, Nietzsche thinks, has glorified the weak. He has a slave morality, and it's this idea that those at the bottom of society, the weak, are actually better off than those who are naturally strong and powerful. And Nietzsche just thinks this is wrong. He thinks it's wrong to take something that's not good and say that it is good, that those who are at the bottom are actually better than those who are naturally at the top. Now, there's a lot to be said about that, but I think that it does point out a couple of things. One is that Jesus's understanding of what the good life isn't terribly well understood. In fact, he's basically saying, blessed are the weak. So if you want to be blessed, you better get weak. And if you're strong, then you've got some real problems. And you better stop being strong, or else you're going to be in trouble. And so Jesus is perceived as not really having anything good to say, any good news for those who are up and in. Only the down and out can really come to Jesus and have a glorious future. Hey everybody, welcome to the Sanctus Forum. I am Michael Stewart Robb, better known as Mike. On the Sanctus Forum, we do books and everyday spirituality, and with respect to spirituality, I am most interested in a rational spirituality, a spirituality that's connected to thought, to knowledge, hopefully, and one that really gets into our regular, ordinary, everyday lives. Now, one of the angles that we pursue to do that is we talk about a book by Dallas Willard called The Divine Conspiracy. Dallas Willard is a philosopher at USC, and The Divine Conspiracy is possibly his best book. That's debatable. We talk about it just one small section at a time, and we're in chapter 4 and only in the second section, and we won't finish the book this year. We will hopefully finish the chapter. The section for today is called Pretty Poison, and the pretty poison that he is talking about is a he thinks false interpretation of Jesus's Beatitudes. Now, the Beatitudes, if you've never heard of them before, are Jesus's statement on who is well off, who has the good life, or to use the Bible's term, who is blessed. You can find them in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, and just read a few verses, and you will read, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven," and that's the first Beatitude, and it goes on. There's a list of 8 there, and then there's another list in Luke, which is a bit different, and those are the Beatitudes. Their statements. Beatitude has to do with blessedness, being well off, and now we have developed an understanding of these throughout history, which Dallas Willard thinks is incorrect. And there have been a lot of interpretations. They're all pretty similar, but by and large, the idea is that Jesus is giving us a list of things that we should emulate. So poor in spirit being the first one is something that we should try to become. Mourning, the second one, should try to mourn somehow, being persecuted for righteousness' sake. That's the last one of Matthew's list. Try to be that somehow, because in order to be on the list of the blesseds, you need to be in these groups somehow. You need to count yourself in these groups. Now, in this whole chapter, therefore, all year, Dallas is going to be making an argument for a different way of understanding Jesus on this point. And in our section, Pretty Poison, the argument is going to be about the consequences, the negative consequences about from that other traditional interpretation that he thinks isn't correct. Now, all of these consequences do come here, especially in the last chapter. The first one he talks the most about, and that is that some people just reject the whole thing. They reject all of what Jesus is doing because they see this list and they have been told that this is a list of things that need to characterize them if they are going to be Christians. And they look at it and they think, it's just not me, and I don't see why I should try to become that. Now, it's not so strong as Nietzsche's idea. Nietzsche has some other things going on in his glorification of power and all of that. It's more that people come to the list, and they are people who have great natural abilities. They are strong, they are winsome, they know how to pull people together, they have athletic abilities, they're intelligent, and they look at this list and they think, why would that be desirable to develop a kind of posture of weakness in order to experience blessedness? That doesn't seem like I can't do it. So they reject the whole thing. That's one of the negative consequences that Dallas Willard thinks we have. Another one, he says, is guilt, because some people try to become like this. They try to develop these different groups, these different qualities, conditions, and they don't make it, and they feel bad about it, and so they live in a state of guilt, of not being one of the blessed because they don't fit. Another thing I think is probably the worst side of this, and I wish that Dallas had said more about it, but the Beatitudes have created a kind of morbid streak in Jesus's movement where people, they try to limit themselves in various ways, make life difficult on themselves. They try to mourn. So that's understood as just being completely serious about life, no laughing whatsoever. Or they try to be poor in spirit in various ways. Some people glorify in not reading, not developing their intellectual abilities, trying to be persecuted, seeking martyrdom, trying to be poor, financially poor. And you get this sense of like Jesus came to kind of cancel out what seemed like good things in life, and then his followers are kind of morbid and can't really see the goodness of the universe. So that's a negative consequence. And then finally he mentions pride. People do attain to these conditions, and then they feel quite good about themselves because they have entered into the blessedness, and God obviously shines upon them, and they're in the group. Well, he tells a story about this man who rejects the whole thing, and apparently this was a Navy officer. He met, I don't know if he actually met the person, but he met his mother at one of the very early churches that he was working for, teaching for, Saint Peter's by the Sea Presbyterian Church is what it was. And this is in the early 70s. So this is actually right around the time when he is coming to this new understanding of the Beatitudes. And he meets this woman who tells him this story about her son, this Navy officer who left the church because he couldn't see himself in the Beatitudes. Apparently this woman was a flight attendant. So there's a bit more to this story. This is a pretty deep pastoral story for Dallas Willard. What is really going on here with the traditional view is that people are interested in something called eudaimonism. Eudaimonia refers to happiness, refers to blessedness. And the idea is that the virtuous life, so what it means to be a good person, is connected with the happy life. Who is well off, who is blessed. And these two questions get pulled together, and you'll see this in the ancient philosophers like Plato, Aristotle, the Stoics, where they try to ask the question of whether the virtuous life is the happy life. And for the most part, they say yes, that is kind of what they want to be true, and they try to argue that it is true, that if you are virtuous, you will be happy. And another way of doing this is if you want to be happy, then you should look into becoming virtuous. And another way of dealing with that is saying that if you want to be happy, that's a catalyst for you developing virtue. So this sort of desire for happiness is connected with your desire to be a good person. And people with this eudaimonistic understanding look at Jesus's Beatitudes and they think, well, that's clearly what he's teaching. He's giving a list of virtues, things that he defines as representing a good person, so being poor in spirit, mourning, etc. And he's saying, well, those people are also blessed. They're happy. In other words, it's as if Jesus is saying, blessed are the loving, blessed are the kind, blessed are the patient, blessed are the virtuous, because they're going to be happy. And here's what Dallas Willard is going to be doing here. He's going to say Jesus is not teaching eudaimonism. He is actually pursuing two separate questions, and he is at this point only talking about this one, which is who is well off, who actually has that happy, that blessed life, and what are the criteria for being blessed. That's what Jesus is that's the question Jesus is answering, and he is saying that it is not found in these conditions. It is found in, and for that we'll have to talk about it in another video. Stay tuned. Bye.